What is going on, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer and Kyle Kelly live on the Blue and Gold YouTube channel talking some Notre Dame football recruiting. It's a Thursday morning. Lovely, lovely Thursday morning, at least where I'm at. Hope that's the case where you are as well. Fun show lined up today. Kyle, I know in the title it says latest Irish intel 2 weeks from signing day. Listen, I wasn't going to put 13 days. 2 weeks just sound better, but it is 13 days. Forgive me. It's not exactly 2 weeks, but 13 days. It's weird. It's weird, Kyle. It's snuck up on us, but you ready to start signing day prep here soon, brother?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, what our December is going to look like, and it's going to be much different this year than years past. And in past years, we'd be talking about, signing day, third week of December, but now it'll be college football playoff. And yeah, I kind of feel like it's sneaking up on me as well a little bit. I tried to put myself back on the tracks where this Notre Dame class is trending with a story this morning looking at their best and worst position groups about 2 weeks out and kind of how that's stacking up. So, yeah, it's a different feel than in years past, but I would say overall it's a welcome one.
Yeah, much different field. Silly season is around the corner with signing day, and then portal opening up a few days after, and then coaching changes. Which, believe it or not, folks, Notre Dame will have coaching changes. When's the last time they didn't in an off season? So it's going to happen. But hey, maybe for the first time in a few years, Notre Dame won't have a coordinator change on the offensive side of the ball, right? Going from Reese to Parker to Dan Brock. Maybe keep an offensive coordinator. It's poor quarterbacks and stuff learning new systems each year. But so we're going to talk to start the show about some updated rankings with On3 and Rivals, both updating their rankings this week. And folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, of course, for more Notre Dame football and recruiting content. Have a new video coming out today with Darren Pritchett where I talked about a couple guys who I think are really trending towards Notre Dame in the 2026 class. Did a whole intel piece with him, talking about some running back recruiting and some of the same guys we're going to talk about today in a video that we posted yesterday. So you got to make sure you lock into the Blue and Gold YouTube channel. And of course, blueandgold.com, your home for all things Notre Dame football and recruiting coverage. We always have great deals going on in our current offer. I really don't think there's a better deal that you would get. I know our introductory one when we joined On3 was crazy, but $1 for 7 days. So you really get that week trial. And if you like it, it'll auto renew to 50% off your first year. So usually you get like $1 for 7 days or 50% off an annual. Well, now you get both. So you get that trial going right into 50% off the annual. So you're going to want to take advantage of that deal while it lasts. So Kyle, you wrote, we both did articles on the new the rankings, but in terms of On3s, so it wasn't like a huge update. I think in terms of On3's own rankings updates this week, Kyle, like Brandon Logan getting bumped to 4-star was pretty neat, but otherwise I feel like there wasn't anything super notable in terms of On3. Am I misremembering that? Let's see.
No, Cameron Herron made a big jump, about 70-some spots.
Yeah.
So that was the most notable one. But the way I kind of looked at it is with these recruiting rankings, you have your rankings and then you have your ratings. And your rankings are obviously where the prospect stacks up overall in the class, positionally, and in the state. And then the rating basically designates how high of a 4-star they are, how low of a 4-star, 3 stars. So the rating is that numerical value to the left of the stars. So I probably didn't do the best way of describing what a rating is. I don't know if you
Yeah. No, this is a really good point because I feel like people don't understand this. And on my other computer I have where it describes it. So basically there's like a 94 star is different than a 91 4-star. It's how the player is graded, right?
Right.
It is how they are viewed as a prospect. And then the national rankings, state rankings, position rankings is how they're viewed versus other players. So, like Chris Burgess dropped 40 spots in the national ranking, but like his grade of what, a 91 didn't change. I don't think his position grade or is like grade change. So like when you talk to the scouting guys, like yeah, Heron's grade went up one, right? Like, or yeah, you talked about that. Yeah, +1 rating here, and let's say in the article, same rating. It's like the rating and the positional grades are a little bit more important. The national grade is like the one that gets the most attention, right? Like, oh, I'm the number 216 overall player in the country. But like how
Probably the least relevant, right?
yeah, it is because like how a safety stacks up against a guard doesn't really matter a whole lot. Um, so, but it is the thing that gets the most attention. But like Cam Heron moving up 70 spots in the national rankings is going to get more headlines than him moving up 8 spots in the interior offensive line rankings. But moving up 8 spots is a monumental shift, right? I mean, he's now the number 11 interior offensive lineman in the country. That's really, really good. So what else do we have on that? So Heron was a big one. I would say that if you are a mover anywhere up or down within 20 spots, it's really not a big deal in national rankings. The positional rankings, the one thing that like can be a little tricky about that is like if you're a center, there's not that many graded centers out there, ranked centers, right? There's just less of them. So like that's or interior offensive lineman is sort of similar. Like 8 spots in the interior O line rankings is a huge move compared to like 8 in the receiver rankings. There's thousands of receivers, right? So it's like moving up 8 spots in the receiver rankings is not as big of a deal, but that's just kind of a note real quick. Nothing too
Mike, if you don't mind,
crazy.
I just want to
Yeah.
follow up on my point because I think it is kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
along with where you're kind of thinking as you're going through this because there wasn't a whole lot of alterations in terms of the ratings, which I think ultimately matters most because that's kind of dictating, their performance and the scout grade, as you
Sure.
mentioned. If anything, it was a beneficial update for the Notre Dame commits with Heron moving up, getting bumped up rating, and a Brandon Logan as well. There might be
Hmm.
some others. And obviously, when you bump the rating up, just naturally your ranking's going to improve as
Correct.
well. So when these Notre Dame commits do slide a little bit in the rankings, but their actual rating doesn't change, that I don't really view that as too big of a deal because it's just a matter of like there's other guys in the cycle that are maybe improving or um, other guys that are being discovered. It obviously you want your guys to be ranked higher, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's the biggest deal. My one observation that's I remain curious about is Ethan Long's ranking in the 25 cycle. He did drop down 10 spots positionally despite his rating remaining the same. And that's the one that I can't really seem to grasp because I've seen Ethan Long a couple times in person and, he's not a flashy player, but if I'm thinking about this as a Charles Power or Cody Belair, and I would like to hear their perspective eventually on this,
Yeah.
like Ethan Long's a guy that has like plus length at the position. Like he's 6'2", but his length is probably comparable to like a 6'4" guy, like a Kyle Hamilton, in terms of his wingspan and his arm length. And like you can really see the way that that as helps his performance on the field. He's got great speed. So I'm wondering why he hasn't been favorable in the eyes of evaluators. So that's the one that I kind of question. But on the flip side of that, in my 5 thoughts column, when Nolan James committed the 3-star running back out of DePaul Catholic, flipping from Boston College, I pretty explicitly said that I really don't often like write about or try to critique or challenge rankings, because that's not my talent. And I think those guys have an extremely hard and unrewarding job. But I had seen Nolan James in person, and like it didn't take a rocket scientist to find out that he was much better than like the number 54 athlete in the country and like
Yeah.
number 989 overall player or whatever he was. So I'm glad that they reevaluated him and put him in a redesignated his position to a running back, because now I think his ranking much better
Yep.
reflects kind of how I see him, and now like he's kind of on the verge of being a 4-star
Yeah.
player. So that
Yep.
was one big positive for me.
Yep. Really good stuff. I have a few thoughts. The one I was just about to say escapes me, but until that comes back to my mind. So here's the actual rating changes. Again, like the specific grade. So like an 88 is like a mid 3-star, 89 is like you're almost a 4-star, 90 is a low 4-star, and so on and so forth. I don't have the chart in front of me. I apologize for that, but
I got a hot take, Mike, real quick.
yeah, real quick.
Well, actually, it's not even a really hot take, but I think the best way to think of the ratings is like if you're a 3-star, like that kind of translates to being an undrafted NFL like priority free agent type guy.
Did you just say the word priority on this show?
4-star is like, your day 2 and 3 NFL draft picks. Obviously 5 stars are first round guys. And like, if you're in the 90s of a 4-star in that grade, like you're going to be like I don't know, probably 2nd through 5th round pick. And then as soon as you start to get like the lower 80s of the ratings, that's probably when you look at being like projecting as like a 6th or 7th round pick. So another curveball in the rankings discussion, but
Yeah.
kind of another way to look at it.
So Heron moved up one spot in the grade, right? So he went from a 90, 91 grade and rating, interchangeable word here. Owen Strebig went down one from a high 3 at an 89 to an 88, which is interesting. Owen Strebig, number 53 offense tackle. So On3 doesn't see what like Rivals does, listing him as the number 15 offensive tackle in the country. On3 is 53. Brandon Logan went up one from an 89 to a 90, right? So when you move to an 89 to a 90, that gets you to that 4-star status. So you have like Owen Strebig, and I know like for rankings, people will just get upset about Strebig, but then won't look at like, oh, On3 hates Notre Dame. Strebig's rankings terrible, but then like Brandon Logan On3 is the outlier on the other end, right? Rivals doesn't even have any positional grades, nothing for him. Whereas On3 you sees him as a 4-star. So I mean, it's just kind of one of those things that it can even out. Moving along, Anthony Sacca dropped down one grade from an 88 to an 87, so he's a lower 3-star now. That's another big outlier for Notre Dame on the other side of it. Blake Hebert, Notre Dame's quarterback commit, went from an 88 to an 89, so he's just on the fringe of 4-star status, and that bump up did get him On3 industry ranking 4-star grade, so now we're just confusing the people a ton. So the industry ranking takes into account all 4 of these: On3, 24/7, ESPN, and Rivals. So far we've just been talking about the On3 ranking, but when you take in the industry ranking, that's all 4. So the bump from On3 got him 4-star status according to the industry ranking. What other rating changes do we have? Nolan James went up 2 spots, which is pretty significant. We'll call that the old Notre Dame bump. Went from an 87, a lower 3-star, to just on the cusp of 4-star status. I would basically guarantee, just according to my experience in almost 12 years in this business, one of these websites is going to bump him to a 4-star. And I would expect Nolan James to go from someone who's ranked in the 900s to the top 400 or so. And I think he'll end up being a 4-star prospect according to the industry ranking.
24/7 is considering putting Nolan James in their top 247 from what I heard. So
yeah, that's not surprising at all. I mean, he's close by both sites, On3 and 24/7. I just bet you that they will bump up. So let me ask you this before we move on to a different discussion. Who in the class, give me 2 guys that when you look at them, you're like, I would bang my fist on the table for them to be ranked higher. Like, who is it?
Can I put you on a cliffhanger for our prize picks read?
That's a great call. Great call, Kyle. Our friends at Prize Picks are sponsoring this week's Notre Dame recruiting update. And I have to tell you, folks, testing my skills on Prize Picks during football season is my favorite way to play daily fantasy. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types is what makes Prize Picks the daily top fantasy sports app out there. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. You just select 2 or more players. You go more or less on their projected stats, and you place your entry. They have all sorts of weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts as well, such as Taco Tuesday, which I have an active Taco Tuesday. So George Pickens had his receiving yards discounted down to 38.5, and I paired that with Nick Chubb tonight going more than 39 rushing yards, or excuse me, 39.5. So if Nick Chubb runs for 40, George Pickens catches or has 39 receiving yards, your boy is turning $25 into 56 and a quarter, just like that. Download the Prize Picks app or head to prizepicks.com. Use the promo code BGI once you play $5 on that. So download the Prize Picks app, head to prizepicks.com, and use the code BGI to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineups. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Good call, Kyle.
I got my answers too.
Okay, let's hear it. What do you got?
And let me preface it this way. I really like to talk about the guys I've seen in person just because I think it gives me a better evaluation seeing those guys. And 2 guys I've seen within the last couple of weeks here, Ethan Long and Elijah Burris.
Yeah.
I've kind of talked about Ethan Long, and I got to imagine you're on the same wavelength as Elijah Burris as me. Now it's hard for me to say this because I don't know what most of the other 116 wide receivers in the country.
Correct. Very, Kyle, that's a very good point, right? Like we like to yell about rankings and stuff, but it's like, well, what do you think about how they stack up with everybody else? No, you don't know a damn thing, but you're still yelling about it, and we're doing that too. So good bit of context, Kyle.
So I don't know how that stacks up, but I just cannot fathom that there are 123 wide receivers better than Elijah Burris after seeing him. His stats have been, his development has been pretty remarkable this year, and I wrote about that this morning on Blue and Gold. So just to touch on this, Burris from his junior to senior year in the same number of games. Now, let me say that DePaul Catholic is still alive in the New Jersey postseason, that non-public group. So a lot of the private schools, I think they play in the quarterfinal or the semifinal this week. But Burris, in the same number of games, has 6 more catches for 424 more yards and 7 more touchdowns.
Then who?
Compared to himself. So
Burris, from last year,
10 games as a junior to 10 games as a senior, has 6 more catches for 424 yards and 7 more touchdowns. And one thing I've learned when looking at wide receiver prospects, this is something that the great Tom Lemming has told me, friend of the show and guy that's been covering recruiting for about 3 times my lifespan. He said that when, looking at wide receivers, you always want to look at their yards per catch. That's a pretty good, way to.
His is what, over 20 yards?
It's like 25 yards, and it's like 10. Here, let me just bring it up.
No, I got it. Yeah. 31 receptions for 858 yards and 12 touchdowns in 10 games. So he is averaging 3.1 receptions per game, 86 yards a game, and a touchdown a game. That's pretty remarkable. Real quick, I can't believe I haven't mentioned this yet. We are planning on having Steve Wiltfong from On3, National Recruiting Guru, join the show in maybe 10 minutes or so. He texted me that the Juju Lewis announcing on Pat McAfee today has kind of thrown him a loop. So I don't know if he might have to cancel, but because of that, but yeah, we should get Wilfong on here in a little bit, but we'll see. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, well, you said all this without mentioning the most important number that I'm trying to
Oh, sorry.
articulate, which
What
is
was it?
his yards per catch, which is 27.7 yards per catch. So
Yeah.
every time he's for over 25 yards. And I think last year is probably about 15. So, yeah, that's a big time jump. His development has been pretty remarkable this year. I think Notre Dame's got to be sticking their chests out a little bit with this evaluation, because when Elijah Burris committed to Notre Dame, he had like what? I don't even know his offer sheet. It wasn't
Duke,
all that impressive. So,
Duke, Toledo, like it was nothing crazy. Yeah.
and he has solidified himself as a real prospect in this class. So yeah, I that's one ranking I just can't really wrap my head around. So I would be curious to hear, kind of why why they rank him that way. I know like 24/7 Sports, for example, has really increased his ranking into the top 247. And I don't know if I would even say Elijah Burris is a top 247 player, but I would at the very least is a 4-star guy in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my two, Ethan Long and Elijah Burris. And I'd be curious to see if your answers differ from mine at all.
Yeah, Burris now a 4-star per the industry ranking. I mean, because 24/7 and ESPN have him graded as a 4-star. I mean, yeah, on three is going to bump him. There's no doubt in my mind. At least to like an 89. See, that's the thing. He's an 88, but there are so many receiver recruits. So like we just said, Ethan Long is an 88 now as well, right? He's the number 73 safety. There's just so many. So like 124, that sounds really bad. And again, I think it is not accurate, but there's just so many wide receivers that 124 as a wide receiver and that grade is not the same as like 124 as a safety. Does that make sense, Kyle? Because there's just so many wide receivers. They're everywhere. There's so many of them out there. But anyways, I'm gonna give you 3. Greg, he's Lemming loves Notre Dame. Just leave it at that. Burris is 1. I've been pounding my fist on the table for Burris for a while. That I expect him again. He'll get at least to an 89 by all 3. I feel pretty good about that. Nolan James is the other. There is something to, like, you have some guys who are just really, really good high school players, but they may have like limited ceilings at the next level. I don't know if James is, he's closer to his ceilings than some guys, but I still think Nolan James, should be a low 4-star guy for me. He just, like, Kyron Williams is, he's like these two have the player comp because they play so similar, but for me, like when Kyron didn't run a great 40 time and he gets dropped, it's like, guys, can't you just watch the film? He's just an amazing football player. That has to count for something. And I think it does with Nolan James. That's why I would have him as a 4-star, but maybe just like the lack of a super high ceiling is why maybe he shouldn't get ranked higher. And then the third is Ko'okia from Honolulu, Punahou. Sources absolutely rave about him. Let me pull up his on-3 page real quick. Let's see where he's graded out at. Just a 3-star across the board. Number 38 linebacker by us and Rivals. So it's like a high 3 right now by on 3 and Rivals. I don't really know how ESPN's grades work. And then 24/7 has them a bit lower than just one like rating lower. But I think Ko'okia, based on how he played as a senior, versatile thumper on the inside, I think he's just getting slept on because, he's in Hawaii. But that would be my 3. Cal?
Like that. Yeah. Only reason I didn't mention Kia is because he got bumped up pretty dramatically early on in the September rankings update. So I think On3
He's a
typically
high 3, yeah.
updates their rankings about every 2 months. And the last one was in September, and I think he moved up about 20 so spots in the rankings and probably a point or two with his rating grades. So, but that was one that came to mind because I think he's had a pretty solid senior year.
87 tackles, 15 TFLs, 5 pass breakups, 2 QB pressures, and a fumble recovery in 9 games. Okay, that's enough about rankings. We could yap about this more. But Kyle, we kind of talked about this to begin the show, but Notre Dame going to sign its 2025 class not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday afterwards. So it's quite the shift in like the recruiting calendar. Usually it would be Notre Dame ends the season, at Stanford or USC, and then they'll do some home visits and stuff. There's no home visits. That's done in terms of before signing day. Now, if there are some players who, let's see if I can pull up the recruiting calendar. Recruiting calendar. I don't know if maybe you can while I'm yapping, Kyle. But if you're someone who is a summer enrollee, then like Freeman can come by or whoever in January. But if you're someone, like an Elijah Burris, you're signing in December, then enrolling in January, there's no home visit for you. You sign, and then the rest of December is it's still a dead. No, there's a little bit of a quiet period, but then you're preparing for a playoff game. It's just really interesting. There's no more home visits to report on or huge coaches on the road stuff like that. We usually would. Let's see, the Bull subdivision recruiting calendar. I got it. Here it is. So right now we're in the eval period where your coaches can go out and see guys at games and whatnot. December 2nd through the 8th is a dead period. No face-to-face contact allowed at all. So you have a recruit on campus for that home game on the 30th. They can leave on Sunday. And then the 2nd through the 8th, dead. The 9th through the 22nd is a quiet period, which means the kids can come to campus. But there's kind of rules against, like, if they can come for a playoff game. Like if Notre Dame has a playoff game on the 20th or the 21st, the kids are allowed to be on campus, but Notre Dame's not allowed to sanction them getting a ticket. So that's kind of interesting. We'll see if that is a rule for signees in the 25 class, but in terms of like 26 targets, right now, they're Notre Dame's or these other schools that are going to host playoff games are not allowed to sanction tickets. But we'll see if there's workarounds to that, and then you go right back to a dead period, the 23rd through the 5th. It's a weird, this recruiting calendar, recruiting rules are always changing, Kyle. But yeah, man, signing day right around the corner, and there's not many targets left for Notre Dame, but still more than in years past at this time.
Yeah, certainly. And you mentioned that that coaches can no longer go in home with the recruits, but I'll be curious to see if any coaches or teams do that, because in years past, like, there's been workarounds with that. Like if you sign your admissions letter early and things like that, like sometimes the coaches can still even visit a recruit during the dead period. So I'll be interested to see if any coaches do pop up at any houses for home visit.
That's a good point. Remind me after the show to ask somebody about that. I got the guy I can ask. That's interesting. So maybe, yeah, like that second or the third right before. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. And how much longer do we even call it signing day? I mean, because it's like they don't sign letter of intents and stuff. But recruiting, as we know, college football, as we know, is just, it's gone out the window. It's just a whole different game. So Notre Dame has a class score right now of 90.94, which I really don't like, Kyle, just going through all the minutia of how this stuff works, but it's a point lower than last year's. Like, do you feel like with the context of, we don't know how this class is going to finish, we don't know how the rankings are going to finish these guys' senior season, like how do you think about this class compared to 2024?
I think overall not as strong, but that could change if you add a Derek Meadows or a Jalen Wiggins to the fold. My biggest concern is with wide receiver recruiting because just looking at it from a pure numbers aspect, I kind of crunched everything yesterday, and the group's average rating with Burris, Jerome Bettis Jr., and Antavius Richardson is an 88.83, and that's like a high 3-star, but
Ish.
that's the fifth worst wide receiver class for Notre Dame in the internet recruiting era. In the previous four, three of those four only had 2 commits, so it's kind of hard to really, I feel like 3 is a good number to bring into account with an average rating. 2 seems too,
Sure.
volatile, especially 1 as well. So that's a concern for me in this class. But across the board, I'm feeling pretty good a lot of the other positions. I would like to see them add another running back. Um, offensive line, I feel pretty good about. Defensive line, I feel pretty good about. I still think they need another guy there, a la Jalen Wiggins. Linebacker, you would love to have Madden Faremo. And this defensive back class, I would stack up with any
Anyone?
group in the country. And that's something I touched on as well this morning at Blue and Gold. It's basically like a top 3 defensive back haul for Notre Dame in the internet recruiting era, which, again, basically goes back to 2004. 2002 in some instances. So it has its strengths and weaknesses, but it just like we've been talking about for the last several weeks now, it's just all going to hinge on how the Irish close. If they can close on these top guys that they've been in on for so long, it'll really change the perspective of this class. It'll change where it ranks comparatively to the other schools. And we could be looking at this class a whole lot differently if they do get some of their top targets in the fold.
Yep, Mike Singer and Kyle Kelly on the Blue and Gold YouTube channel talking Notre Dame football recruiting. Folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more content. Gonna have Steve Wiltfong on the show, but I don't know if he's gonna be able to join us with that Juju Lewis news that dropped that the highly touted quarterback, former USC commit, announcing his commitment. Was there a specific time?
12-10 on the Pat
12-10.
McAfee show.
So I'm not sure. I texted Steve a couple minutes ago to see if he's going to be able to join us. But real quick on USC.
Right
Who? Juju?
No, Steve Wiltfong. His phone is probably going off the hook. The amount of people he's probably in touch with and trying to figure this thing out. I don't really envy him.
All right. I know we're talking latest intel on the Irish, but I wanted to wait till we get Steve in here before we really went through the specific 25 targets left. But USC, Kyle, I've been talking about this. What the hell is USC doing? Lincoln Riley at USC is just as big of a fish out of water as Brian Kelly at LSU right now. Why is USC so freaking active in the South? What are they doing? How are they not getting more guys in California? They have a blue chip ratio. This is bizarre. In-state, 19% of their class comes from California. Kyle, what are you clicking away on, brother?
Switching on my tabs, see what's going on here, man. Keeping up with the world.
Well, we're doing a show. I just hear click, 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 click.
I am very noisy. Just
you are. Their average distance of prospect from campus is 1,200 miles. Blue chip ratio, 48%. It's mind-boggling to me. And then you look at the decommits they've had, right? Georgia, there's one from California, but Alabama, Florida, Florida, Georgia, Florida, Georgia. It's I don't know, man.
Hey, if you really want to, try to really feel bewildered, just look at the top prospects in California and where they're all going. Oregon's dominated that state. Trying to think who else there is. Yeah, bring this thing up.
So here's the top 10 per the industry ranking. You got, this is where the kids are going: USC, Bama, A&M, Bama, Notre Dame. See, USC, Miami, A&M. A&M and Bama are cleaning up in California.
In the past, it's really been Oregon.
That's nuts. Let's look at 24 class. So Sayan ended up at Ohio State. Okay, Bama, Texas, Notre Dame, Georgia, Oregon, Oklahoma, USC. USC didn't get until the number 8 guy. Oregon, Bama, USC, Oregon, Oklahoma, Oregon, Texas. Yeah. So they got one guy in the top 29, or 2 guys in the top 30. That's crazy. What is Lincoln Riley doing? He's got to be on the hot seat, right? I don't know. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. I get it. Everyone wants to go into California, but that's wild. So,
yeah, I would love to bring some USC reporters in the show and ask them what in the heck is going wrong, because you just have so much talent in your backyard. I mean, this would be like Notre Dame completely abandoning Chicago, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis. Yeah. And those areas are routinely, big stops for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Ironically, Notre Dame does lose some of their, top targets to other schools from those areas. I think part of the reason is maybe similar to the reason that USC is losing some top guys, is because like these prospects, some of them just simply want to go and play away from home. But like in California and SoCal, like that's one of the biggest talent pools in the entire country. So not everyone there is going to want to play away from home. So that, yeah, I'm very fascinated by USC's lack of success in recruiting the SoCal high school football scene.
19% of USC's 2025 class is from the Golden State.
What's here? Let's do the math on Notre Dame's class real quick, of just like kind of where I said the
what, maybe like Midwest, like just Midwest commits.
No, because I don't think that's fair. Because I mean, you can include like Phoenix and I don't know, some areas like that for USC. So I'll just say, how about Chicago? Simply, I mean, Notre Dame's got what?
But California probably has more people in that state than like the entire Midwest or something, right?
Yeah, you're true. All
right, let's just do the Midwest. Let's just do Midwest. Okay. All right, let's just do it just for the sake of this.
Sounds good.
So of the 23, Chicago, Burris, Flanagan, Zachary, Heron, Strebig, Pulak,
Brandon Logan,
Reef. Did I pass Logan?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Logan's 8. Gordy's 9. Oh, no, there's Logan. So 9 of the 23. That's significantly different. All right, that's what's 9 divided by 23? What, like 40% or something? So, yeah.
More than
I mean,
that.
Notre Dame has 13% of their commits in state, and that's Indiana. Their average distance is 663 miles from how far the prospects are to Notre Dame. Compare that to like 1,200 for the Trojans. 61% blue chip. So Notre Dame's blue chip ratio was like 57 for a while. Now it's 61. USC's 48. But this is what's wild as we continue to dog on USC's class. They're just one spot behind Notre Dame's national recruiting ranking, 13 to 14. And I was actually talking to somebody about this morning, about Notre Dame's recruiting class and why it's ranked where it is. there's just a lot of like 3 stars. There are some high end talent, but there's a lot of 3 stars, and there's only one top 100 player per the On3 industry ranking, right? You compare that to USC, who has 2 5 stars, right? Another top 100 player. They just have a little bit more juice at the top end of the class than Notre Dame. So Notre Dame's like got quality at the top, and then there is a good bit of 3 stars they're more in like the 600-700 range. So all right, Kyle, I don't know if Steve's going to join us. This is the joy of doing live TV here. So let's give the people what they came here for. Let's talk about the 2025 class, where things stand. Let's go to Derek Meadows, the LSU wide receiver commitment. Just talking to people connected to this recruitment, I think it's trending towards the Irish. Big variable being he's going to LSU. It's at least what's been reported next weekend. So, when you go, when there's a visit around the horizon, you just don't know like if that can really swing things positively into a school's favor. But right now, I would give it like a 51-49 advantage to Notre Dame. I do personally think he ends up at Notre Dame. The Michigan buzz, Kyle, I don't see, because Bryce Underwood is not going to Michigan right now. If Bryce Underwood goes to Michigan, then the Wolverines have a better chance. But here's the interesting thing, Kyle. It's like, okay, if Bryce goes from Michigan or LSU to Michigan, then Meadows might follow him, but Meadows might not stick with LSU if Bryce sticks with LSU. So Meadows isn't clearly just going where Bryce goes, but then why wouldn't Meadows just stick with LSU? It just makes you think that there's something that Meadows just might be falling out of love with LSU, and Meadows, I think, is just more of a Notre Dame kid than an SEC kid.
This is where you would like, if you're Notre Dame, to have that at-home visit within the 5 days from Meadows's LSU visit, and then his signing day, which is December 4th this year. So there's 5-6 day gap. And what I'm kind of interested in with his LSU visit, if just go to his recruiting profile there, Mike, because this will only be his 3rd trip to Baton Rouge, where he's been to Notre Dame significantly more times. And one kind of variable that I'm also monitoring here is Bishop Gorman I feel like much like most schools in the country are out of school next week for Thanksgiving. So that's going to give Meadows some extra time to get to campus. So I wonder how much time he'll get to spend there, as opposed to just making a pit stop for a game. Like say if they were playing on Friday night, flying in real quick on a Saturday, getting out of there on a Sunday. Does length of the visit matter? It feels like, when you're in these heated recruiting battles like you are with Derek Meadows, for example, it's just like the smallest of things start to add up. Like as Steve Wiltfong likes to say, sometimes it comes down to a game of inches. And does LSU just simply getting more time with him matter? So that's something I'm wondering there with Derek Meadows, because I feel like Notre Dame has the momentum now, and now it's just going to be a matter of if LSU can recapture it.
All right, Antoine Parham next. Again, I think Notre Dame has a slight edge for Meadows right now to flip him, but I don't know. You could feel too confident just right now. Antoine Parham, Tulane wide receiver commit. I've been writing and saying, when Notre Dame went after both Nolan James, the BC running back commit, and Antoine Parham, Tulane wide receiver commit, I was like, James is a lock, Parham is not. Parham, who, yes, Steve's coming. I just texted Steve, hey, don't worry about it. We can have you on next week. Steve's going to join us, so we'll probably circle back to Meadows real quick to see if Steve has any thoughts on Derek Meadows. Kyle, we're going to have to save the Indianapolis recruiting questions next time, because I don't want to hold Steve for very long, and I want to get through these 25s.
Absolutely.
yeah, Steve's going to join us here. But yeah, just quick thought on Parham. It's not as big of a lock as people think. All right, we're going to go ahead and bring in Steve Wiltfong. Folks, make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel, of course, for more content. Let me change to this real quick. Boom. Steve, busy man. How you doing?
Guys, I need to change my camera. Let's do that here real quick here. Let's get this camera going here. And let's do that.
Oh,
That seamless.
Looking sharp, yeah.
Technology. I got my blue and gold illustrated.
Let's go.
Here. Like, I just wanted to make sure that was in the shot here. So
now I know what's behind it, so I'm glad.
Yeah, you guys do one of these this year. The Irish beat Army and then beat USC, and then win a few more after that. Right? Then we get a Notre Dame one up there. But
let's go.
They're all on 3. So I'm just repping the brand with that Michigan book. You guys are under the same ownership, so
yeah.
I know Notre Dame fans would not be against a new story about the the last one was 1988 national championship. I got a Notre Dame Golden Moments book up there. We got
nice.
The Irish are represented here.
I like it. All right, Steve. So I know you got that Juju Lewis news coming out soon, so we won't hold you for too long. But some of these recruitments that we're going to talk about, we got 5 for you. I don't know how closely you're covering all of them, so just whatever thoughts you have. But Derek Meadows is a very interesting one, Steve. LSU commit. I just said before you joined, I like give a 51-49 edge to Notre Dame. Obviously, there's the Michigan variable out there with Bryce Underwood, but I'm curious for your thoughts on this because it's like, okay, if Bryce goes to Michigan, Meadows might follow him, but if Bryce sticks, it's not necessarily that Meadows sticks with the LSU Tigers. So, what are you thinking on Derek Meadows?
Right, that's why it's so hard to put a prediction on what Derek Meadows will ultimately do. I like where Notre Dame stands under the current umbrella of information that we have, but there's still some fluidity down the stretch.
Interesting. Going to LSU next weekend, is that kind of what's being floated out there?
Yeah, he could definitely still stick with the Tigers too. Now he's been there a couple times, and obviously they rallied to get his commitment in the summer. Notre Dame was the favorite for quite some time, but the opportunity to play at LSU, their track record of receiver success, offensive play, the SEC stage, and playing that competition were all attractive to him. But look, Notre Dame has stayed in this recruitment. Those relationships are as strong as any program. He was back again this fall, season, another great season from Notre Dame. They got to close strong, but this is a recruitment that could still go 3 different ways.
Yeah. Have you been following Antoine Parham a whole lot, the Tulane wide receiver commitment? Usually, Steve Wiltfong not talking Tulane. Of
course. Talked to him after his visit to Notre Dame for the Florida State game. Had a great experience. Some other schools are offering. If Notre Dame's hitting the gas there, if all the stars are able to align with that recruitment, I think that they'll land them.
Agree. NC State offered him a couple days ago, officially visiting there this weekend. So you just knew it was going to be a matter of time before someone else offered to join Notre Dame, and that did take place. Jalen Wiggins, Florida commit. You have thoughts on this one, Steve?
Going to be tough, I think, with the administration backing Billy Napier. Jalen Wiggins is expected back at Florida again after going to the game last weekend. He's a Notre Dame caliber kid, Notre Dame type kid, like-minded to the young guys that they have in the locker room. Notre Dame will continue to battle, but I still think they're battling uphill with the Gators. We'll see what happens, though.
Agree. Yeah, he's supposed to be going back there this weekend, and yeah, I think the Napier one made that one pretty tough. Just want to touch on Andrew Olesh. Chad Simmons had a report on him this morning, and I've been hearing that Notre Dame is not looking very promising here. Would you agree there, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have Notre Dame in the lead group. They got a late swing and an opportunity to show Andrew and his family what it would look like on the field and off the field in South Bend, and I think he liked it. But there's just some other more long-standing relationships and things that have been out there.
Madden Farimo. What are you thinking about this one?
I mean, my on 3 RPM's on the Irish now. They got to get it to the finish line, and USC is up the intensity on Madden Farimo here. They look like a challenger. Texas, Washington. So it's a war. Notre Dame's gotten them to 2 home games there's a lot of trust in his development and opportunity to play early. And so my on 3 RPMs on the Irish. They just got to hold on here, get it to the December 4th.
I'm going to throw it over to Kyle for just a couple of minutes, Steve, about Indy recruiting and Mark Zachary. Kyle, I'll give you the floor.
Stud.
Yeah, good to see you, Steve, because obviously you're super plugged in with Indianapolis down there, and you're out at a game every Friday night, and I know it's been that way for you for decades on decades. So I just wanted to see if you can put into perspective how special of a year and high school career Mark Zachary has had, and kind of in your experience, how he stacks up to some of the other top guys in the area that you've seen over the years.
Well, the biggest trait that Mark Zachary has is he's a playmaker. If the ball is in his vicinity, he's going to make a play on it. He turns the other team over. Oftentimes you see these defensive backs that get recruited and they have these traits, but they don't have any interceptions. And then you can say, well, they don't throw the ball his way or whatever, man. Derek Stingley had a bunch of interceptions in high school. These guys make plays in high school, and that normally means that if you don't make plays in high school, how can we expect you to make plays in college? Well, Mark Zachary makes a whole lot of plays. He's elite ball skills. He's a very fluid, explosive, short area athlete with tremendous length that still has a lot of upside physically on the next level. He's the point guard of one of the best basketball teams in the state, won a state championship as a junior, had an offer from Butler to play basketball there. So that shows you what kind of athlete he is. He's a winner. And again, he shined at receiver when they needed him to. He can play safety on the high school level. He can play corner. And more than anything, he can turn the game over quickly by making a play in the secondary and getting you the ball back. He's done that countless times, forcing fumbles, picking off passes, and he'll run those back to the end zone too. I think he's got 2 defensive touchdowns of over 90-plus yards in his high school career.
Steve, appreciate you joining. Your camera called time of death on this on you anyways here. So appreciate you hopping on, and good luck with the Juju announcement there in a little bit.
Guys, have a good one. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks, Steve. What a legend. The Steve Wiltfong. All right. What a show. Yapping about rankings, talking a little signing day, going through Notre Dame's remaining targets. Maybe next week we will kind of make our predictions, and then Kyle, instead of maybe we'll stick with that December, like the day after, would it be the 4th, signing day on the 3rd or 4th. Like we'll do the Thursday morning after signing day, kind of rehash, and then we'll probably go live Wednesday night as well. I'll probably kick Horka and Jack out of that slot, and we'll do like a signing day show. Bring Hyde on, maybe you get some guests on there or something. We'll do a big signing day show as well. But that's going to wrap it up there, folks. Please hit the thumbs up on this video. This is a fun one and kind of all over the place. But if you're just joining us now and you want to hear us yap about recruiting rankings, you can rewind and watch the beginning of the show. But I really appreciate you guys for joining as always, and we will catch you next time.